So, Wolfenstein Youngblood is a game. I was just playing it over the weekend with my good friend John on twitch.tv, and this game is one of those really weird ones to talk about. It's very mixed, in my opinion, and the Steam reviews go to show this mix as well. And usually when I see a game that's reviews that are mixed on Steam, usually I fall into the either I love it or I don't like it category. But in this case, I'm literally in the middle. So, what is this game? It's basically it's just a sequel to Wolfenstein. So you go around, you shoot Nazis, and it's all fun days for the most part. However, this game has one major thing. Well, actually, I say maybe two major things that really boil down and ruin the experience for me, which I'll get to talking about later. I'm going to start with the positives before I get to the negatives first. Alright. So, yeah, this follows basically the similar trend of the previous Wolfenstein games, or at least the new series of Wolfenstein games, which, if any of you have played before, you know exactly what to expect. You go in, you start shooting down Nazis, the gunplay feels solid, for the most part. Again, I'll get back to it. It looks fantastic. It hasn't got the greatest story, though, I'll admit. The story's kind of there. But basically, in this game, it's a co-op based experience, so that's the big twist they got on this from the previous Wolfenstein games, where it's largely focused on playing with a friend. And to be perfectly honest, I gotta say, much of your experience, much of your enjoyment of the game, might depend entirely on whether you are playing with a friend, because I don't know what it's like, the AI in single player mode, because I was playing it the entire way through on the stream with a good friend of mine. But I can see this being a pain in the ass when you're with the AI, because you'll have to deal with them doing things. But again, for the most part, it's a solid title at its core. Now, when I get to the bits that really annoy me, it's largely to do with the progression systems that this game sort of has in place. It has a leveling up based system where, well, it's just sort of like a level up system from an RPG, kind of just sort of slapped into the game. And this doesn't bother me too much. It just means that earlier on you're road gated by enemies that will kill you in like one shot, which you're meant to go back to later on, and that doesn't bother me too much. My main issue with it is it just kind of feels like it was an afterthought and just sort of launched into the game with, no thought really. But there is a second issue right now with this game's gameplay mechanics, which largely boil down to the actual shooting themselves, which, like I said earlier, the shooting mechanics do feel very kind of solid. It's still Wolfenstein at its core. But the enemies in this game have been kind of turned into bullet sponges. And I think a big reason for them doing this is they wanted to try and, have you talking with your partner, working things out, making your way through the battlefield and working in co-op. But in actuality, it doesn't work all that well, because enemies are bullet sponges for the most part, unless you lower the difficulty or choose the right ammo type. And basically, you get two types of ammo to use. You have square ammo for some guns and stripe ammo for other guns. And when you're shooting at enemies, they'll have either squares or stripes at the end of the health bars. Not every enemy. Some of the enemies will go down just fine, no matter what ammo, but you will come across a lot of enemies with these squares and stripes. And it's kind of awkward in how you're meant to maneuver and deal with these guys, because basically, if you shoot a stripe enemy with a square gun, it's going to do so little damage, it's pointless. So you kind of have to awkwardly, constantly keep switching your weapon out, and clumsily make sure you have the right weapon for the right enemy at the time. And it's a pain in the ass. That's the best way I can absolutely put this, is it's absolutely a pain in the ass. And honestly, it's something that's almost ruined my enjoyment of this game entirely. Which is a bit of a shame, really, because the core fundamentals of this game are there. The core fundamentals are, it's fun. It's just this one thing can really irritate. And again, you can sort of mitigate this slightly, I think, by lowering the difficulty, but I didn't have to even lower the difficulty until I got to the final boss. So you have to take what I say there with a grain of salt, and I had to do that on the final boss because, Jesus, that final boss, oof, I did not like it. I'm not going to spoil it, but it was not well designed. It was it's one of the worst first-person shooter final bosses I've played in recent memory. Like, to be fair, I don't play many first-person shooters, but you know, have bosses, that is. At least recently. Actually, I can't think of any first-person shooters that are recent to have bosses. The only things I can think of, like ye older games, like Duke Nukem 3D and stuff like that. But I digress. Either way, the main core of the gameplay, however, as you go in basically in this main hub, and you select missions and stuff and objectives from this main hub area, and you can refill your ammo. And you and your partner will then go out to specific cities of Paris. Specific areas in the city of Paris, I should say. And you're basically fulfilling the objectives, and as a result, this is more of a back and forth sort of game. You can clearly tell that it's a bit of a budget title, which is not a bad thing at all, because obviously it's got a budget price. It's £25. It's not full price at all. But you can tell there's a lot of reused assets, reused areas constantly throughout the course of the game. And you will find yourself going back and forth between places all the time. But overall, it is pretty fun. That's the best thing I can say about it. It's one of those games that's overall it's pretty fun. It's just that it has a really annoying, I guess balancing issues are the best way to describe it, because sometimes weapons that you think will pack a lot of punch, like say you get a grenade launcher. Grenade launchers cause explosions, massive explosions, in your brain will usually register to massive damage, but due to the ammo system that I mentioned previously, if you come across a certain enemy type and then you pummel them with grenades, that, you know, a lot of them can just literally walk it off and say, "Ha ha! You think you got me, fiend? Well, behold, for I am not invincible. I'm just invincible to that one type of weapon." And it just comes across as a pain in the ass. I think that's the main thing to take away. So, honestly, reactions to this, kind of mixed. I'm not sure if I can recommend it, because, again, I had a lot of fun playing it on Twitch. I had a lot of fun with my friend playing it. But I think the main thing is, if you think that these issues involving, like, leveling up system, you know, that's not really an issue, it just sort of feels there. And the ammo, basically it's just the ammo system now that I think about it. So if you think the ammo system issue won't be a big pain in the ass, then sure, go ahead, pick it up. But honestly, this is a co-op experience that I largely think might not be very good non-co-op. Again, don't take my word, haven't played it in single player, and I have no urge to replay it now that I've completed the main campaign, the main storyline. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Wolfenstein Youngblood, not the best game in the world, but it exists. It's just kind of a shame that the glaring issues are there, and they do really drag the game down a lot. Also, as a bonus, the game has microtransactions, which I fucking hate. To be perfectly blunt. Although I do say that, but I haven't seen the microtransactions myself in the game. I know they're there, and that's why I just basically have this extra bit at the end of the video just to say there are microtransactions in this game. I myself didn't come across them, but they are there. And apparently they were bad at one point on the PS4 version, but the PC version didn't get the really bad microtransactions, it seems. But I'm going off hearsay here, I'm not entirely sure. Either way, I recommend it mostly on a sale, because then you're less likely to be burned if you don't enjoy the gameplay. That's the main way I recommend this one. But anyway, thanks for watching, I'll see you after. Bye-bye.